Baylor's never won a national championship in football despite having some really good years, and then this past season they finished at 3-9, so today I'm going to attempt to fix the Bears before it's too late. I have 6 challenges I must complete in order to consider myself successful, but I also have some difficult restrictions to make it harder, and my first one is I can only recruit players from Texas. Additionally, I can only play 3 games a year myself, so I have to actually turn around this roster, which isn't that good, and the only player I'm excited about is senior quarterback Daquan Finn, who transferred from Toledo. Now I've decided I'm going to give myself just 5 seasons to complete all these challenges, so I have a feeling this is going to be extremely difficult, and I know it says we don't have that many team needs, but trust me, we do. Our future outlook with the Bears is not good, so I want to try to recruit somebody new at every position, and I love that there's 1 5-star and 4 4-stars we can go after, even though we're only allowed to recruit in Texas. If none of these 5 quarterbacks end up being good though, that would be an issue, and Reggie Quinn is already a 75, there's a 73, a 77 as well. What is up with all of these gyms? That's an amazing start because as you can see, in 2 seasons we're losing all 3 of these guys, but I can't get too excited yet because we're not first on any of their boards and we still have to make sure we land one of them. Redshirting's another thing that could be useful because anybody we do that's a freshman now would be on the team in 5 years, so maybe halfback Joseph Dodds will be the reason we potentially win it all. I don't really have any expectations for this first year, but we don't have a single ranked team on our schedule, so it makes sense why we're projected to be the 39th best team, even if it's higher than I thought it would be, and at some point in these 5 seasons we're going to have to win the Big 12, but it doesn't have to be this year. If I'm going to worry about anything, it's going to be having a winning record versus our rivals TCU, making sure Dave Aranda doesn't get fired, because having kitchen sink 3 is such a valuable thing, and then of course getting one of these 2 quarterbacks. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are a couple of other prospects I'd enjoy having, like 80 overall Jeff Smith, but we know we're going to need a quarterback of the future, and both of their stats are incredible in different ways. Here in year 1 we are an 81 overall team, so I am expecting us to take down teams like Air Force on our schedule, which we do. We're going to use transfer Daquan Finn's 1 year of eligibility to our advantage, because outside of him and the 5 wide receivers that are 5 of our top 10 players, this roster's not great, so there's no telling how things will unfold, but I do have good news as we are gaining points on Jeff Johnson. By week 2 he already wants to visit, so we're going to put that against Colorado and Deion Sanders, and the same's going to be true for Jeff Smith because we are in his top 3 right now, but at the same time we've been put up against one of our in-state rivals, so in order to keep things going well, this is going to be one of the 3 regular season games I hop into this year. Even though we're a lower overall team and on the road, I'm hoping that Daquan Finn can help us go out and win, but with a bad throw we're on an early 4th and 1 and he is not going to make it. Texas A&M has followed that up by driving down the field on us where they are going to get this 3rd and 8, and I'm not a huge fan of how this one has started where I don't get it out in time. Even when we start to figure things out offensively, our defense is a major problem. At least on this 3rd and 6 we're going to come close, and I'm going to risk this by handing it off to sophomore running back Richard Reese, who fights his way in. That was a great ending to the first half, and we are going to stop them on this 3rd and 4. I think they've broken all those tackles, and this is the problem. I'm telling you, our defense is just not good. There is a reason that I have to fix the Baylor Bears, and with 2 minutes left, we've barely made any mistakes, but we find ourselves in a very bad position. After picking up that long pass, now they're inside field goal range with a 7-point lead on us, so even if we stop them, we're going to be trailing by 2 possessions, and Texas A&M on Heisman mode's gotten the best of me. I thought we'd be able to throw it up to wide receiver Monterey Baldwin more in this game because he has 97 speed, but he just can't get by them, and the Aggies are going to win this rivalry matchup. You can tell that we have a long way to go in just 5 years, especially with this future outlook that has us as the 83rd best team in 4 seasons, so I'm starting to see why it's going to be a challenge, and I would absolutely love to be ranked number 23 SMU on the road, but it doesn't happen. On the bright side, we're still stealing 5-star athlete Richard Johnson from them, so if we could get this 2-way player, that would make up for it, and this might be our best opportunity to sign a top 25 recruiting class. In order to do that though, we're really going to need our visit week against Colorado to go well, and we might lose Jeff Smith to Texas beforehand because Texas has him coming in week 6. That worries me a lot, but at least we've already gotten Jeff Johnson and these other prospects to commit, so I wanted to say recruiting was at least going in our favor, but SMU jumped us on Richard Johnson, and Utah's also ranked inside the top 25, so we're probably about to pick up another loss. The Longhorns wouldn't even win during their visit week, but that didn't stop 80 overall defensive end Jeff Smith from committing, and I don't think there's any way that this recruiting class finishes inside the top 25. The only guys that are ranked as 4 and 5 stars were in very tight battles for, and falling behind the New Mexico is just embarrassing. We also have 14 people on visit this week, but of course Colorado's undefeated in an 88 overall, so I don't see this going well for us, but at least we're sitting at the bottom of the Big 12 with TCU. Whenever we have these 4 and 5 stars coming in, of course we're facing a program with the number 1 offense, and I guess Deion's just letting his son sling it, but that's a problem for us as we have to play almost perfectly to win. They literally scored a touchdown within less than a minute, so that tells you how this game's gonna go. And apparently in NCAA football, they also have a real defense. Shedeur Sanders threw for a 47-yard touchdown on his next drive, so you literally can't make this up. But we still have got to try our hardest to impress all of the visiting recruits. And that should have been a touchdown, but it was dropped, so we're gonna have to do it here. Getting just one stop would literally be amazing. They've burned us deep and they took it down to Dylan Edwards. So I am very thankful that Shedeur Sanders did not see what I saw, and there we go, we're gonna pick up the first. I gotta give a little bit of credit to Daquan Finn. He has made it possible for us to be in this game, as he also has speed on the ground. He's gonna get around all these defenders, and it is tied up at 14. The Toledo transfer is making an impact for Baylor. And after our defense forced a fumble, there's a chance that we could go into the second half with a lead if we could just get some points. And that's gonna stop the clock for us to then set up this next play where they clamped us. A touchdown instead of taking our field goal would be such a big deal, but we throw an interception instead, and they didn't give us the safety either. It would be incredible if we could end the first half getting a safety, but instead Dylan Edwards is going to break free, and please tell me Jenkins can catch him. This is not how we needed to end the second quarter. I'm going to have to make a perfect tackle here, and we don't. The Colorado offense has been so explosive, and that was literally the worst ending we could have had to the second quarter, but we're driving to start the third. So I would just like if we could reach the end zone, and that's a dot. They'd also fumble the kickoff, so they're starting to make some mistakes. And we've been doing a pretty good job at holding their offense as of recently, but they are going to pick up this 3rd and 6 and break a tackle to get even more yardage. It seems like this drive is going to end with them getting a touchdown, but we could stop them on 3rd and 2, and I missed the tackle. Shedeur Sanders just tied it all up at 28. And this is such an important visit week, which is why I'm putting so much emphasis on this game. We do get the 3rd and 17. So that has set us up to drive down the field and set up for a game-winning field goal if we didn't run backwards. The Buffaloes are not even burning any of their timeouts, which makes it easier on us. And it's nice that we're going to be able to just kick 3 for the win, but we should take our touchdown instead. I wanted to say that's going to leave us with no room for error, but Shedeur's gotten them down the field, so we've got to get the defensive stop, and we do. That was one of the hardest fought wins I've had in NCAA football, but we came out on top with Daquan Finn, and it didn't result in as many commits as I would have liked, but I'll take it. Even if these guys aren't the highest overalls, they are going to help us out in the future, and we're back in the lead for 5-star Richard Johnson. It seems like every team we play has to be good though, as Arizona State of all programs is sitting at 4-1 and they take us down. The newly aligned Big 12 has not been a good time, but even though we lost that game, we would get another 6 players to commit, and I am actively trying to get players like 60 overall Carl Cruz to commit, not because he's good, but I want Baylor to have a full class so we can hopefully finish inside the top 25. To be honest, from here until we play against TCU, I don't really care what happens, so we're just going to sim to that. And that was a big win against Arizona, but we drop one to UCF. If we can't beat a program like Houston, I have a feeling that I'm going to get fired. And it's not good to have job security this low. After signing both these QBs though, I think this class is going to have like 4 quarterbacks, and we still haven't sealed the deal with Richard Johnson. I am happy though because TCU's horrible, sitting at 0-9, so we should win the Holy War, and that would be nice since we have to have a winning record versus them in this rebuild. You can tell that the stands are far from being full, but a few seasons from now, I have a feeling that we're going to be able to fix it, and I'm going to thread the needle for a touchdown. This game honestly was not too exciting, but I had to make sure that we didn't lose to our 0-9 rivals, and in the end, we probably could have played a lot better. That result leaves us with just 2 players left that need to commit though, where both of these battles are probably going to get pushed to off-season recruiting, and you might be wondering if it's still possible for Baylor to make it into a bowl game, but after dropping that one to 1-9 Texas Tech and then playing number 7 Oklahoma State next, where we somehow win, it's not going to be, and I'm just confused how that's how those 2 results went. In the new Big 12, West Virginia was able to go undefeated, sitting at 12-0 while we're down there at number 12 in the conference. And we certainly aren't going to have any award finalists, but it makes sense why. Daquan Finn's stats weren't all the best, and Richard Reese would run for less than 700 yards. As for all of our receivers, none of them really stood out from anybody else, and I'm just glad that we didn't get fired. As for our players leaving, you're going to see that Daquan Finn's getting drafted into the NFL, so this should help us get some more recruits to come to Baylor, and we were able to get a tackle out of the transfer portal, but he's not from Texas, so we're going to decline him. Remember, this entire class is based out of Texas, and I love to see that we signed a top 25 class. Even though that was only players out of one state, it was up there at number 15, and that really surprised me since we had 1 5-star, 2 4-stars, but then just a bunch of 3-stars. The biggest name we got was obviously 5-star athlete Richard Johnson though, and 1 season into this 5-year rebuild, we've knocked off one of our 6 challenges. Now what I wasn't expecting was to see this athlete go to a 77 overall halfback, and Greg Franklin can play about anywhere, but he only has 68 speed, so we're going to put him at fullback. 5-star Richard Johnson's the big one though, who's a 78 overall halfback, and he's not that great anywhere else, but we already have a few good ones, so I really didn't want to put him here as well, but we had no choice. One thing that'll make or break this rebuild though is how our player progression goes, and out of our top 10 players, only one of them regressed in wide receiver Micah Guilford, but that doesn't concern me because he jumped 5 overalls during the regular season, so it's like he went up 4, and our quarterback room looks really rough. That means I'm probably going to start Jeff Johnson as a freshman, and I might as well just cut this guy now. So we got that out of the way, and our wide receiver room is so small that it actually helps I recruited a 60 overall. Now, because this rebuild's so short, there's going to be very few players that I redshirt, but that's because we need guys that make an instant impact, and I'm going to have to search for wide receivers, linebackers, and safeties. It literally just took us one season for Texas to be our only pipeline state, but I've made our outlook look a lot better as we're supposed to finish in the top 25 in what would be our 5th year, and we can continue to raise that by getting more prospects to commit. I love to see at the top of the players interested in coming here a 5-star wide receiver, and after scouting through a ton of them, I found this 93 speed 6'4 wide receiver from Texas. If we could even get just like 3 or 4 of the top 6 guys on my board, I'd be incredibly happy. And it's time to start season number 2 where we're projected to finish 53rd, but I'm completely okay with us being a little bit lower than we were last year because right now we have to decide between these 3 quarterbacks, and obviously I'm going to throw the freshman out there so he can learn this season. It could be a down year because of that, but we went up in overall, and last season SMU beat us, so I'm hoping we come out on top this time, but they beat us by 1. It wasn't a bad debut for Johnson though, as he was also our leading rusher, and I want to get him some top targets next season, but all 3 of these are going to be a battle. Texas would also land another 80 plus defensive end, so now instead of going after him, we're going to have to go after a 75 overall. I am expecting us to get our first win versus North Texas, so if we lose this one on the road, that would be a real bummer, but we got him by 2, and I just realized that we're still on the hot seat. If we're going to win a championship in the next 4 years, so much has to go right for us, and why is Army beating us out for a 4-star wide receiver? This is the 6'4 one with 93 speed I really want, and I gotta put everybody on a visit as soon as possible versus number 18 BYU. Before that, we have to play at number 24 Auburn now, and even though they haven't won a game yet, my expectations are still very low, but we did take them down. It certainly was not because of Jeff Johnson, but our defense who forced 3 interceptions, and just when I thought things might be going in our favor, I do have some bad news. Before Chris Marcus could even come on a visit, Penn State got him, so we really have to win against BYU or else we might not get any of these wide receivers. Luckily for us, they're just an 81 overall, and they're coming off of a loss because they're no longer ranked, so we just have to go out and throw for 250 yards, which has not been a problem so far. I've been enjoying using Jeff Johnson so far, and the freshman is going to put 2 players in a spin cycle, so we have cruised throughout this game so far, but things might change here if they're able to get into the end zone. This is a really big 3rd and 4. I can't give up anything underneath. I know where their quarterback wants to go, and we get it out. They had nothing they could take, so we're gonna keep our 3-possession lead, and maintaining it through the rest of this game has not been an issue for us at all. We're gonna take down the Cougars, getting our 3rd win of the year, and I hope a lot of players sign after this performance, which is exactly what happened, and I'm seeing a ton of yellow names. I'm gonna have to go out and find some more prospects to add onto our board because the only important one left is Stephen Holmes, and securing all of these guys means our defensive future should be good, but also having Brian Lindsay is gonna help out our receiving core. I don't love that next up's number 8 Colorado though, because we got lucky enough last year. I don't think it's gonna happen twice, and it doesn't. I also have a feeling there's not gonna be that many prospects left in Texas for me to pick up, but there's 2 wide receivers right there. Now, if they're not being recruited at this point in the year, there's probably a reason, but we could find some gems, and it would only be one of them, but that's what I did with 74 overall linebacker Sean Wilson. Surprisingly enough, there's still a chance that we could make it to the Big 12 championship as well, but in order to do so, we can't lose again before we play against UCF, and I wasn't worried about Arizona State, but Arizona does scare me, and they take us down by 3. That's unfortunate, but the Knights would lose, so we're still not out of the running, and I'm gonna try my best to make this happen. I really don't have anything else to focus on this season because Florida's going after Sean Wilson and Stephen Holmes just won't commit here, so we might as well see if we can overcome all these injuries and take down the Knights in their home stadium. I think we got off to a really good start in this 5-year rebuild, but it seems like we always run into a team that gives us issues, and that's what UCF's done so far. They've been able to score on every single possession of theirs, and freshman quarterback Jeff Johnson hasn't had a great day yet. We're gonna fall short, so we had to give it back to them. They scored again, and I just want to end the first half with a touchdown. I don't think they're gonna expect us handing it off to Richard Reese, but that didn't get us much, so we're gonna need to pass down here, and one of our slants finally gets open. Josh Cameron's number 34, which is pretty weird for a wide receiver, but he was doing his best to try and help us get back into this game. I don't know what's happened to our defense, but it's non-existent, so maybe we were better off simming because we're not gonna come back in this game with just a minute and a half left. That would require us recovering at least 1 onside kick, and it's not going to happen here, unfortunately. So UCF's gonna take us down at the bounce house, and I hope Timmy McClain graduates soon. With that result, all I'm worried about now is making a bowl game against Houston. We won by 11, so we could clinch one by going on the road and winning at our rivals, and that has to be the 3rd matchup we hop into. Because of the loss to UCF, there's no chance of making the Big 12 championship, and I hate to admit it, but we lost another recruiting battle, this time to Florida. Stephen Holmes still refuses to commit as well, but I'm sure it'll happen at some point, and let's just make sure that we don't lose to TCU. You never know what could happen when you have a freshman quarterback out there as he throws a pick, and I was not expecting him to turn it over in this situation, but he did, and going into the second quarter, it is still 0-0. Even and after holding them there, I'm pretty sure they're going to drill this field goal, so we better step things up. And it took a while, but I think that's what we're going to do to end the first half. Our tight end's actually having a really good game, but I don't want to try to attempt to pronounce his name, and he's being used like a slot wide receiver right now as he runs the wheel route and holds on to it. Here on 2nd and 9, they are going to send the blitz though, and on the run, it looks like Jeff Johnson's going to get in, so the freshman quarterback puts us up by 2 possessions. And I gotta say, I am really proud of our defense for how they were able to perform in this game. We held on to our lead throughout the last 2 quarters, and once we started scoring, it wasn't hard to pull away. Being bowl eligible means we shouldn't get fired, and even if Appalachian State's beating us out for the wide receiver that I do want, at least Steve Bush committed. I'm gonna be so embarrassed if we lose that recruiting battle to a school like them, and I'm glad that we actually beat Texas Tech this year. Our final game's against Oklahoma State where they take us down. They got revenge for last year, and it looks like Middle Tennessee State now has a lead, so I'm just glad that recruiting battle's going into the offseason, and look at that, we were able to finish at number 6 in the Big 12. We're starting to make some progress with Baylor, getting in a bowl against Texas. And of all the opponents, why did we have to get the Longhorns? That isn't an ideal matchup for freshman quarterback Jeff Johnson, who's averaging an interception a game, and the only reason Richard Reese had a bad season is because he was injured for half of it. I do like to see sophomore wide receiver Micah Gifford slotting in as our number 1 though, and I have a feeling that we're about to get steamrolled. Texas is 12 overalls better than us, and Quinn Ewers is playing in this game. He is not resting for the draft. They are determined to win this as a 6-6 program, and we're about to hold strong here on the goal line where it's 3rd and goal, and we get the interception with Jenkins. I'm also going to try to return it, but we get caught, and that was just a great defensive play. There is something I wasn't expecting to see though, and that's the fact that senior quarterback RJ Martinez is the one that is out there on the field. Apparently Jeff Johnson tore his tricep, so he's out for a week, and we're gonna have to play one of our toughest games of the year against a really good team with a backup QB. This is a really big 4th and inches. I'm hoping that we could at least get a block there, and even though we didn't, we still picked it up. Now on 2nd and goal, we're going to take a sack, and unfortunately the drive would stall out with us just kicking a field goal. We would hold on to that lead all the way up until there's just a couple of minutes left though, and we need one more stop. We've been getting them all day, so that honestly shouldn't be too difficult for us to do, and that drop is going to make this a 3rd and 3 where I tried to send in a lot of pressure, but Quinn Ewers sensed it, and he is going to scramble for a lot. He's also going to break that tackle, and I don't see anybody in sight that's going to be able to slow him down. Come on. They're probably going to get a touchdown out of this, so then the pressure is going to be on our backup quarterback. And I feel like feeding Richard Reese could be a good idea if he can break one of these halfback screens free, but he doesn't. RJ Martinez was not expecting to be in this position, but our comeback route is going to get open, and I would have loved to see how freshman quarterback Jeff Johnson handled this situation, but we might be able to get a bowl game win anyway, so it's not the end of the world that he's out. And how did our offense just figure it out? It took us all day to get 10 points, and then we did that in 4 plays, but I'm okay with it because we beat Texas, and I'm excited to see what next season has in store for us. Just like last year, we unfortunately didn't have a single player that made the All-American team, so 2 seasons in, we've only completed 1 challenge, but I wasn't too worried about completing them until I saw how many good seniors we're losing, and I'm glad these 2 players are staying from the NFL. We're going to get 1 more year out of Micah Gifford, and I think he decided to stay because he saw Josh Cameron only getting a 5th round projection, but I'm hoping that doesn't stop Stephen Holmes from coming here because I'm loading all 15,000 of our points into him. Thank goodness we're going to land him. And even though we only signed 18 prospects, this class was rated higher than our last one. I thought only recruiting out of Texas was going to be a challenge, but we found a lot of really good players, and our wide receiver room definitely needed it because after this year, we're going to lose Gifford, Boner, and Winfield. After looking at our roster, if these go well, I feel like we could be a playoff team, and I don't know if this is going to be enough, but we have so many seniors on this team that we got to find out. The highest rank of the top 6 teams in our conference is 21.5, so it's not out of the question, and we filled all of our needs offensively, but defensively, we have the same ones as last season. I thought I addressed those, but clearly I didn't, and I'm not seeing any 5 stars from Texas that are interested in coming to Baylor this year. It looks like we're supposed to be the 36th best team, so you can see that we're making progress, and now by year 5, we're supposed to be the 8th. Also, to my surprise, even though we're supposed to finish 6th in the Big 12, whenever I go over to divisions, we're supposed to win ours. And that means it must be much weaker than the other one, but I'm okay with that. After scouting through everybody and setting up our recruiting board, this is what it looks like with 480 overalls on top, and even if it's going to be a battle to land some of these guys, I think it's well worth that risk. If we're going to go any higher than an 86 overall, we're going to need it, and this has to be the year that we beat SMU. We've lost to them too many times in the past, but that was a much closer call than I would have liked, and we just survived against Texas State. Because of that, I'm not feeling good about this game, where we have to go on the road and play at number 4 Texas A&M, who also is a quarterback that's favored to win the Heisman. Even if that doesn't go well though, we're going to have everybody come for a visit against Cincinnati, so if we have to bounce back, it shouldn't be too hard. Just 2 seasons ago, we lost lost to the Aggies, and this one's not going any better for us as they've held us scoreless throughout the entire first quarter, and they're about to go up by 2 possessions. Having a young quarterback is definitely exciting, but it's also not good when you need him to clutch up, and this defense is clamping him. I was not expecting this game to go this terribly for us, but with a few minutes left in the second quarter, they're up by 21, and they've been able to maintain that lead into the fourth quarter, where we have a long way to go if we're ever going to have a chance at pulling off the comeback. That was freshman wide receiver Brian Lindsay on the end of that one, and I'm going straight back to him. So we've gotten it back within 14, and on this third down, I just didn't have the right defense out there. We're having a really hard time getting them off of the field, even if we do it now, and by the time we did, it was too late because they were in field goal range, so we're just going to send up a prayer, and that's another mistake. It was like our guys weren't on the same page throughout the entire game, but we still have a young quarterback, and eventually Connor Wegman's going to have to graduate. I also have some more bad news, as it turns out every single player that I want other schools do as well, so these are going to be some battles, and I feel like we have to annihilate Cincinnati to impress them. This is probably not one that I should be simming, but I don't want to waste hopping into a game, and looking back on it, I probably should have since we only won by 4, but these 4 players want to come here, so I must have made the right move, as that's going to help out our team a ton, but we did lose out on this athlete. There's also still some really good players in Texas that I could go after, so I added them to our board, and now we have these JUCO options along with these 3 players as well, which would be cool to pick up on top of all these guys that we do have a lead on. Next up on our schedule is BYU on the road. They're 2-3, so I was confident simming it, but clearly I shouldn't have been, and look at that, we picked up 2 more players. This class has the potential to be the best one in the rebuild, just judging based off of overalls. And speaking of overalls, we're 9 higher than Arizona State, so I think we're good to go ahead and head into week 9 picking up a win, but we dropped that as well. I could not tell you why we keep getting commits, but of the 480 overalls that I wanted at the beginning of the year, we've gotten 3 of them, and Maurice Sims is the only one left. I'm a bit shocked that we're sitting down here at number 6 in conference play though, and I don't think we're going to bounce back from that, so we might as well just continue to sim. All I really care about is that we go out in week 12 and beat TCU, but we drop that to UCF, and that's so unfortunate. We're sitting at 4-4, now 5-4. So this is the exact same spot that we were at last year, but we have a better roster. It also seems like we're going to lose out on Maurice Sims because he goes on visit in week 14, so the least we could do is destroy the Horned Frogs. Our lack of success starts to make sense though when I see the injury report, because we're missing our starting halfback and also a 94 overall corner. With those 2 guys in the lineup, we'd be sitting in the top 25, but without them, we're just an average team, and on this first drive, we are going down at the 1. Never mind, they gave the touchdown to Brian Lindsay, the freshman wide receiver, and I gotta give credit to TCU for keeping up with us so far in this game. With a couple minutes left in the second quarter, we're up by 4, but every single time we've scored, they've been able to respond back on us, and I can't believe they didn't give us the touchdown there, but we should be able to get it on this play. That's our backup running back Bryson Washington getting in, but they responded back in 2 plays, and this is what I'm talking about. They're matching up against us extremely well. It doesn't matter what we do offensively if in response they're just going to get another touchdown, and Jeff Johnson is playing so well, but I have a feeling we're still going to have to fight to pull away in this one. I would love if we could just get them off of the field on this 3rd and 7. Our man-to-man coverage didn't stick though, and they just gave them the first. Now on this 3rd and 4, they're going to hand it off, and they are going to be short this time, so our defense did step up, but their punt was so good it pinned us inside the 5, and those are some decent blocks. If Washington can get around this one player, that would be a 95-yard touchdown run for the backup running back, and he is going to get caught. Beating TCU would help us knock off the second challenge in this video, having a winning record against our rivals. And there's Stephen Holmes, the guy I wanted so bad. Next year's when he could make his biggest impact, and this is going to be a touchdown. So from there, we were pretty much fine against the Horned Frogs, but I was very impressed with the effort they put up. I mean, normally I'd say our defense is pretty good, but they made it look bad today, and I can see how we're sitting at 6-4 now. At least with that win, we know that we're going to make a bowl, so shout out to Jeff Johnson for that, and it would be impossible for us to not have a winning record against TCU in this 5-year rebuild. The other challenges are going to be more difficult, but look at the flood of commits we just got, and I have loved how well recruiting's gone for us. We only have these 3 players left on our board. I was also curious if we could still make the Big 12 championship, but Oklahoma State's undefeated in conference play, so how these next 2 weeks goes doesn't really matter, and we lose to Texas Tech. Assuming we also lose to Oklahoma State, this year's going to end just like last season, but we beat them by 25, and that numbs the pain of losing out on athlete Maurice Sims. Our finish in the Big 12 definitely wasn't great, so there's a reason we didn't have any Heisman finalists in our bowl games against an easier school at least. But what makes me the most upset is we still haven't had a single All-American in this entire rebuild. I didn't even realize it, but apparently at some point this season Jeff Johnson must have gotten hurt, and that would make more sense why we were losing. Richard Reese got replaced by Bryson Washington, who did nothing his first 3 years at Baylor but then went off as a senior. As for our receiving core, everyone was pretty terrible besides our tight end and Micah Gifford, so it really stinks that both of them might not be on our team next year, and we'll we'll just have to enjoy what could be our final game playing with them. I like this matchup a lot more than playing against Texas. And here on 2nd and 5, they're going to bring in a blitz, so I'm going to roll out with Jeff Johnson to just take it into the end zone where I fumbled away instead. I think they gave us the safety though. So even though UTSA came up with a huge defensive stop, we're at least getting the ball back, and we're probably just going to go down the field and get those points again. We might even do it with a kickoff return here, and it's nice to have Richard Reese back in the lineup. Well, at least I thought it was. With 4.5 minutes left, we are still stuck at 2 points. So if we want to take down UTSA, we're going to have to fight and get into the end zone on this drive. I thought this was one that I could comfortably sim, but clearly I was wrong about that. And this is a very tight game for a Big 12 school. The Wildcat is going to work wonders though, with senior Richard Reese finding the end zone. He's only 5'9", so it makes sense the injuries ruined his career, but they actually stopped him short there. So the Roadrunners could have won with a field goal if our defense wasn't so good at just holding them throughout this entire matchup. We just got to make the tackle now, and it doesn't matter that they broke a school record because they're faced with a 4th and 20. With 3 timeouts left, they're probably making the smart decision by punting us the ball back, but it never feels like it's the right decision in these rebuilds, and I'm confident that we're going to be able to run out the rest of the clock because we have a good rushing attack. We have run into an issue though, because if we get into the end zone, it gives them a chance. So I'm actually really happy with the fact that they shot that hole so well. I don't think they're going to score on us in 27 seconds, and I almost put the wrong defense out there on this play, but after I did, we should be fine. They're not going to come close to reaching the end zone. We get the interception and we win a second bowl. I'm not proud of how close that one was, but these are the stepping stones in our team developing, and after back-to-back 8-5 seasons, we've gotten a contract extension. We also must have beaten Oklahoma State if we went 8-5 last year, so I forgot about that, but Micah Gifford is going to the NFL, and the amount of seniors that we're losing is disgusting. You would think with this many players getting drafted, we would have had a better season, and this is the first time we've had to fight for multiple different players on signing day. That became a problem because LSU had more points than us, so we wouldn't get that 76 overall athlete, but the rest of this class was so solid, I don't care. It actually finished inside the top 10 with only players from Texas, even though we only signed 15 guys, and that's because of how many 4-stars we brought in. On top of that, we found people like Derek Darby who could make for a pretty good wide receiver, and these improvements are exactly what I would have hoped for, especially out of Jeff Johnson. He's good, but not good enough to where he'd declare for the NFL draft early, and at this point in the rebuild, there's not that many positions that I still need to recruit. We have 2 seasons to win it all, and this season's a setup for next year, so I'll look for prospects, but probably only go after them if they're like a 78 plus. We basically just need to let our own guys develop, but I wouldn't mind getting a couple of these prospects, and it looks like our overall hasn't changed from last year, but that's completely fine because we lost a ton of talent, and then going into next season, we should keep about everybody, so it's only up from here, where I'm very hopeful that we can finish these other 4 challenges in the next 2 years. Before we finish the rest of this rebuild though, a word from PrizePicks, today's video sponsor. With the NBA playoffs going on, this is a great time to get the app, and you can play in over 30 states, so there's a good chance that yours is eligible. Now, if you don't already know what PrizePicks is, on the app, all you do is simply pick between 2 to 6 players and higher or lower on their projections, but if I had to pick my personal favorite type of lineup to create, it would have to be the 2-player ones by far. Anyway, if you're not on PrizePicks already and you want some free cash to start out with, code BORDER, the first link in my description, will double your initial deposit up to $100, and it's time to resume the final 2 years of the Baylor rebuild. Now, to open up the season, we're favored against SMU, so I'm expecting us to get off to a good start before we have to play number 7 Texas A&M, and we do. Our quarterback, Jeff Johnson, also won Player of the Week, so he's starting to develop nicely, and we're actually 5 overalls better than the Aggies. This should be the season where we go out and take them down, but just to make sure, I had to hop into this one since they are a top 5 team, and let's just say that neither defense has been able to get a single stop so far. It has been a battle, and on this 3rd and goal, our tight end is going to fall into the end zone, so you would think things were going well for us, but Texas A&M's about to score again, and our defense just isn't as good as it needs to be. It makes sense though, because we do have a lot of young guys out there on the field. I'm trying to get more points before the half, and I can't believe I took that bad of a sack. Well, with it being 3rd and 22, all I can think of is to throw it up to our 6'4", 94 speed wide receiver, and that is why I wanted to recruit Stephen Holmes so bad. He literally ran straight by them, but they got the ball to start the 3rd quarter, and they've been driving, trying to tie it up again, but we're going to hold them to 3. This is actually such a big deal for us because our offense should not slow down, and there's another first. I mean, the pressure has certainly been on here. I'm going to take the hit straight to the Texas A&M linebacker. I don't know what I was thinking, but that one stupid read could end up costing us the game, so it's a big deal that the 3rd quarter ended that way. I forced them to a 4th and 6 where they are going to have a couple men open underneath. I didn't see Nelson as well though, and they're about to score the go-ahead touchdown. I don't know what was said at halftime, but they're doing so much better now, and if we can't get them off the field on this 3rd and 4, we're going to be in a ton of trouble, and apparently he didn't get a foot down. It wasn't ruled a catch, but somehow the clock's still running, so correct me if I'm wrong, but that definitely shouldn't be happening, and now we're going to have less than 2 minutes to have a game-winning drive. It shouldn't matter if they come out pressing us, but they're also sending a blitz, so I didn't know what to do. And I gotta say, I don't handle the pressure well on this game, but we have a couple receivers we can rely on. We'd end up getting inside the 10-yard line, so we're setting up to score a touchdown that would give us the lead. And I didn't want to get in there, but Nick Johnson made a great move. That's going to give the Aggies a chance to respond, and we should not be celebrating this early. Whether or not we get the win is very reliant upon our defense. Our zones are not doing their job, and all they have to do is get into field goal range, so I'm starting to get worried because it is not looking good. I'm not sure what their kicker's range is, but they seem to be getting very close to it. And here on 2nd and 6, I want to bait them into an interception, but they're dotting us up. Now they're chewing the clock and trying to settle for a field goal, but I want to let them get in because then we at least have a chance to throw it up, so just take this. I know it might seem dumb, but that has worked for me in previous videos before. On the 2-point conversion, they catch it though. So even if we do miraculously reach the end zone, it's not going to matter. And that one interception from Jeff Johnson's going to cost us. I do not want to go to overtime against the Aggies if we're able to pull this off. I'm throwing it up to our 6'4" wide receiver. And he's already dusted them once in this game, but they don't seem to want to let that happen again. However, he did make that catch. And I don't know how because it looks like he did originally bobble it, but then he got a foot down. Stephen Holmes could actually really help us out here. I'm going to give him a chance to make this catch, and he is going to do it, but they're saying he didn't drag his feet there. I can't even challenge it. The game's over. But I'm sure that the refs made the right call here, and it looks like they didn't. I'm getting another angle of it, but that back left foot definitely went down, and we better make up for that loss in Big 12 play because we're a higher overall team than almost all of them. Losing to Texas A&M over and over again makes me sick. Against UTSA, they beat us though. And how is that even possible? We had 28 first downs to their 16. Maybe we really do need to sign some of these guys, and pretty much every single one of them is going to be a battle, but a good visit week probably gets them to commit, so we'll put it against West Virginia. Right before that, we play 0-3 Cincinnati, and I should feel confident advancing the week, but I don't after dropping one to the Roadrunners, so we'll see what happens, and you've got to be kidding. I mean, tell me that Jeff Johnson is injured or something. Nope, it's only Brian Lindsay and Joe Dawson. And what is going on with our junior quarterback? He should be leading us to more wins. I mean, statistically speaking, our offense doesn't seem like the issue, so it's got to be our defense, but we're losing close games. It already feels like we have no shot at winning the Big 12 championship, but maybe this is when we turn things around. And with 2 5-stars visiting, we kind of have to. I know we're dealing with a couple of injuries, but we still shouldn't be 1-3. And I had a bad first quarter versus West Virginia, but I'm hoping to have a much better second. This is not the team that I thought it was going to be. That was an inaccurate pass. It was meant to go over to a corner route, so I'm not happy with Jeff Johnson right now. On 3rd and 10, they are going to somehow get somebody open, and I think the Mountaineers are going to get the first points. I know we lost a lot of good players from last year's team, but I still expected better, and we just can't make tackles. Obviously, they'd reach the end zone, but I have worked it down to respond back, so at least going into the half, it should be tied up at 7, and maybe we'll be able to pull away in the 3rd quarter, but I can't get it out in time. They'd score again, so I really had to lock in to try to move it down the field, but no matter how this game finishes, it is very clear that we're not a championship contender, and everybody on our roster still needs another year of development. I don't know if I've done enough to complete this rebuild in 5 seasons, and sometimes that short time frame's not an issue, but other times sim doesn't go in your favor. If they're able to get into the end zone here, we're going to have a good drive down the field, and they do. So it is time for Jeff Johnson to cook, and he is going to start us out, getting us past midfield. Stephen Holmes takes it to the 35, and I've already decided if we get into the end zone, I'm going for the 2-point conversion and ending the game in regulation. It is embarrassing for this rebuild to be going this poorly, and I'm going to try to take the corner route, but our offensive line did not give us enough time, so we're going with the comeback to make this a 4th and manageable. Here we go. I'm kind of relying on Stephen Holmes to get open, but he didn't really, so I'm going to take off with Johnson, and he broke a tackle, but he didn't get into the end zone, so we have to get like half a yard, and we do. Then for the 2-point conversion, I have a rollout play where our tight end is going to catch it, so we are going to beat West Virginia, but that one should not have been that close. Jeff Johnson played pretty well, but only when he had to, and he must have been determined to get this 80 overall wide receiver. I'm telling you all, the only signings we're going to make in this recruiting class are going to be solid like Chris Doyle, and this guy's also 6'4", so pairing him with Stephen Holmes is a cheat code. I'm expecting us to beat Arizona State, and we can only hop into one more game this season, but maybe a Big 12 championship's not off the table. It would require us beating UCF on the road next week, but we lose to Arizona, so now what happens here doesn't really matter. To be honest, after seeing that result, I've kind of just given up on this season, but we beat them by 21, and I wish sim was in our favor like that throughout the rest of this year. I mean, we're probably about to go on like a 6-game winning streak or something to end the season, but it's not going to matter because we've already solidified that we're not going to make the playoffs, and we actually have the tiebreaker over UCF if they just drop one more game, so that could be interesting. After beating Texas Tech, we need them to lose to Houston, but I have a feeling that's probably not going to happen. I didn't even know this was a rivalry, and they beat them by 20. If we didn't get upset by Arizona, we would be sitting in the Big 12 12 championship, and probably in the college football playoffs as well, because right now we're at 20 in the polls. All this season was good for was picking up a couple more quality players, but we're still not winning battles over Texas. And I really hope that Jeff Johnson doesn't declare for the NFL draft early. I don't think he will, since apparently he's been injured as of recently, and our last big win over Texas Tech came with Reggie Quinn at QB. That means we're gonna have no chance at having a Heisman finalist either. And I could hop into this game against Oklahoma State, but I think we're too far out to make the playoffs, so I don't really care what the result is, and we lose by 6. I figured that would happen with a backup at QB, and we're in the TaxAct Texas Bowl once again, where we're playing none other than Mississippi State. I think we're gonna have Jeff Johnson back for that game though, where he improved a lot this season, and Johnson is the last name of all 3 of our leading rushers. As for our wide receivers, they were all terrible besides senior tight end Matthew Klopp Fenstein, and I never wanted to try to pronounce his name, but he had a pretty good career here at Baylor. What frustrates me though is this season was no different than our last 2, and even though we're recruiting really well, we're not making any strides forward. I'm gonna have 1 season to complete these final 4 challenges, and hold on, I'm pretty sure I'm playing against Arch Manning at QB. Apparently he transferred to Mississippi State and is a 99 overall, so there are 0 guarantees that we're able to win this bowl game. This is not your typical 6-6 team, but we're gonna hold them to 3, so that's a very good first defensive stop, and I'm gonna be aggressive on this 4th and 2, but it doesn't work. Because of that, it's taken me almost 2 quarters to almost score, but I just realized they missed that 23-yard field goal in the first quarter, and I simmed it because it was so close, so I figured they wouldn't screw it up. I think we're gonna have to change our offensive playbook or something next year, because it's been way too inconsistent, but at least our defense has held it down for us throughout this game, and we're up by 10 with 2 minutes left in the 3rd quarter. I was really worried about facing off against Arch Manning, but it turns out I shouldn't have been. On 3rd and 6, they are gonna have way too much time to pick it up, and their offense has finally started to figure things out as they score. I just wanted to get an easy bowl win, but they have not made that possible, and I am going for the deep shot over to Stephen Holmes here. Even though we have a scrambling quarterback, I've tried to avoid rolling out as much as possible, but I think next season I'm going to have to do it a little bit more, because you can normally make a play out of nothing, and it could be dumb to go for it on 4th and 4, but I have this play that we used on the 2-point conversion earlier on in the year, and then it works again. It's simply taken Mississippi State way too long to respond, so I'm not worried as long as we recover the onside kick, and that is what Stephen Holmes does. We're finishing 8-5 with a bowl game win for the 3rd year in a row, and every single time that's been with Jeff Johnson at QB, so we better hope he doesn't declare for the NFL draft, because without him I think we'd be worse, and look at that, it's only seniors that are leaving. The players that got drafted are the only 2 ones that I'm really bummed out about losing, and we didn't get any good transfers throughout this rebuild, but we did just hire a level 27 offensive coordinator, and how on earth did we get Mike Norvell to be an OC at Baylor? That should honestly take our offense to another level, and I accidentally skipped over the signing day portion, but I think the only freshman that would even start for us would be Chris Doyle, and even that's a long shot because all these guys below him will probably improve. We do need another option at tight end, so I'm going to move fullback Raymond Wheeler over there, and depending how off-season training results go, he could jump 6'8" PJ Sims, but I kind of want a receiving target that's this tall. It is now time for the moment of truth, and quarterback Jeff Johnson is up to a 97. Surely these stats can make him a Heisman finalist, and it's time to take all of these points away from the recruiting skill tree and put them into game management, which is going to give us a ton of boosts. I really hope that we finally beat Texas A&M, but because we have to win the Big 12, I'm going to be much more focused on hopping into the conference games, and it shouldn't be too difficult to win it since we're supposed to be the 4th best conference, but you never know what will happen in Sim where we're supposed to finish 22nd. Unfortunately though, the 4 teams in the top 25 in the Big 12 are all in our division, and I'm a little surprised that Jeff Johnson's projected to be a preseason Heisman candidate. We also have to get 3 All-Americans this year, and he's the only player on the 1st and 2nd team we have, so that is something to keep in mind, but we're up to a 93 overall. When I compare that to other top teams, we're the highest that I'm seeing so far besides Alabama, so my confidence is kind of through the roof right now, and again, we have no choice but to just send it to Big 12 conference play, so we're going to do that. We beat Texas A&M finally, and North Texas shouldn't give us any issues, so now we just have to deal with SMU, and we handled them very well. Even with those big wins though, Jeff Johnson's not up in the Heisman watch, so I was worried that he's injured, but nobody is so far. It's not like he's playing bad either, averaging over 300 yards a game with no turnovers, so I'm not going to worry too much about it yet, but it looks like there's a lot of good teams in our division. Of these 9 Big 12 games, we have to pick the 3 that we're going to hop into, and I should feel pretty confident simming a lot of them, but we lost to teams that we were much higher overalls than last year, so I am a little nervous. I probably shouldn't be though, since we continue to just climb the polls, and I'm just going to send it all the way up to week 10 where we play number 17 UCF. Our offense is actually starting to score more like I expected them to last year, but we lost to Arizona last season, so I'm nervous about this one, and now we destroy them. I actually feel really good about how this 5-year rebuild's going now, but the top 25 polls have not changed at all, with us and Oklahoma State State still up there. UCF's also kind of fallen off, so I'll probably play the at Houston, at Texas Tech, and Oklahoma State games, so that means that we got one more week of simming. By now, Jeff Johnson's also up there in the Heisman race, and we just need him to finish as a Heisman finalist to knock off that challenge, and UCF put up 45. I mean, we got the win, but we had to have over 500 total yards of offense, and I'm about to find out how bad this defense is at Houston. It's ranked 57th, but we're scoring 50 points a game, so I'm not sure it matters, and I hope that we can run up the score today. I have a feeling that we probably will, and we have already flown down the field where I'm going to have plenty of time back there in the pocket. I'm going to step up with Johnson, and he's in. His ability to run and pass the ball is just amazing, and here on 3rd and 10, the Cougars have a couple routes out there like a slant that could help them pick it up, but we gave them that. I'm about to just start sending blitzes like this one right here where they break the tackle and Lewis still scrambles for the first. So that would lead to a touchdown, but it seems like we're about to get the next two, except they're going to pick us off. Judging by how this game is gone, we might be better off just simming because this is way too close. And Houston's still not out of it with 5 minutes left. They would be if we could stop them on this 4th and 6 though, and I knew they were going to take it, but the game pulled me away from wanting to pick it off. This time on 4th and 6, we went with straight man-to-man coverage, and whatever play Houston just drew up did not work out for them at all. We should have no issues running out the rest of this clock and getting the win. So now we're sitting at 9-0, and assuming we beat our rivals TCU, we would have never lost to them in this rebuild. Additionally, both Texas Tech and Oklahoma State have lost multiple games, so we've moved up to number 4 in the polls, while both of them are fighting their hardest to potentially make it into the playoffs. All we have to do is beat one of them to make it to the Big 12 championship, so I'm hoping that we're able to do that here, and we're just a higher overall than pretty much everybody that we face. I mean, it might have taken me all 5 years to get the team to where it's at now, but that's the time frame I gave myself. So I'm still on pace to complete all of the challenges, and on this 4th and 3, I wanted to go with the deep play, but the Red Raiders stopped us, so now we have to get them off the field, and we do. In order to beat us, you have to score on pretty much every possession, and they've already failed to do that once on this 3rd and 7. This was a weird wide receiver type screenplay. We get the sack, so we're holding them for a second time, and we've continued to get stops while also scoring, so there's really not much that they can do. Jeff Johnson's also just set a record of some sort with the most passing yards in Baylor's school history, breaking RG3's, and he's had an incredible 4 years with the Bears with another touchdown coming here. That one result secures our spot in the Big 12 championship, but we have to continue to stay undefeated because if we want to get a first round bye in the 14-team playoffs, we have to finish as a top 2 team, and Oklahoma State's now ranked number 13. I wasn't sure if I wanted to hop into this game or not, but we might as well, and all of these game management upgrades have made Dave Aranda such a good coach. If I lose with this team, I don't think there's any excuses I can make, so I'm shooting for a perfect 16-0 year, but every so often it takes me a little bit longer to get points on the board than normal, and that's what happened today. There's only a few minutes left in the second quarter, and we just reached the end zone, but there's another record of RG3's that has been broken, and the Cowboys would be the next team to get points. We are going to go for it on this 4th and 8 where PJ Sims, the 6'8 tight end, picks it up. I don't know why I'm struggling with this offense. I can't even explain it because Jeff Johnson can pretty much do everything I need him to, but sometimes when you play on Heisman, the computer just does really well, especially in any end-of-year conference games, and that's what this is. They're going to get this 3rd and 6, so this drive stays alive where they're trying to tie it up, and I'm going to send the crib at their quarterback. They've blocked plenty of players, but it's not going to matter. We force a fumble and pick it up, so that's the exact turnover we needed. We also haven't run the ball as much as we probably should have, but that's why you've seen me resort to passing so much and Stephen Holmes is open. That was one of the key recruits I really wanted to get earlier in the rebuild, and the Cowboys wouldn't be able to come back from that point, so we finished the regular season undefeated. With 4 undefeated teams though, it's not looking like we're going to get a first round bye in the playoffs, and the only way we would is if Ohio State lost to Iowa, but that's not going to happen. The other matchups between the 2 and the 3, so whoever wins this is going to get the other bye, and we're pretty much just playing in the Big 12 championship to knock off that challenge. We also can't mess up too bad so Jeff Johnson doesn't lose out on a Heisman, and Iowa State's only an 84 overall, so just like our other Big 12 games, this shouldn't be too difficult. They are fighting for a spot in the 14-team playoff though, so they could always give us a couple of issues, and on 3rd and 1, I didn't make a read in time, so I'm going to have to scramble with Jeff Johnson, who is going to go down at the 2. His rushing ability is going to make things super easy. They only sent 1 player, so I should have plenty of time back here. He's going to stumble over, then go in, and I was trying my hardest to throw it and not run up the middle, but I had no choice. I've been using pocket passers in a lot of my recent rebuilds, so I kind of got used to not scrambling with a quarterback. They're getting a huge play on us though, and I can't believe one of our DBs just got cooked like that, but we're going to force a sack. Here on 2nd and goal, they are going to take it underneath though, and we've continued to trade touchdowns back and forth, but they did miss an extra point. That might be game changing for us, as that could end up making all of the difference, and I don't know what was going on with 99 overall Jeff Johnson there, but it looks like he's about to take the sack, so he has to use his legs again, and that's down at the 1. I probably shouldn't be in shotgun for this, but I decided to be anyway, and Iowa State would unfortunately stop us, but then we'd get a safety on them immediately. Assuming we're able to follow that up with a touchdown, it actually worked out quite well for us. But I was not expecting Stephen Holmes to drop that ball, and on 4th and 5 we're short. They've actually been giving us a lot of issues, more than I thought they would. They better not pick up this 3rd and 20 though. And they didn't, but they got the ball to start the 3rd quarter where we should get the interception, but we don't. That would have pretty much been it. I could have said that we have won a Big 12 championship, assuming we'd hold on from there. But instead, they're about to take the lead on us, and even though I shot that hole as perfectly as I could have, it won't matter. This is actually a really big 4th and 3 for Jeff Johnson, where I'm going to take it to Lindsey, but I regret that. Him dropping the ball could cost us the game if we're not able to get them off the field, and that's another time we should have had an interception. Their kicker's already missed an extra point, so there was no way he was going to hit this. And I'm starting to feel a little bit better about how this is going because we're moving it down the field, but we have a 4th down coming up. Little mistakes have put us in this position, and they almost got that blitz in time. But instead, we are still alive. Their man-to-man coverage kind of worked, and I don't know why I didn't take a slant. I have got to be smarter with my reads, and that was supposed to be an out route, so I don't know why he stopped. Now we're faced with a 3rd and goal, which we do punch in, but Iowa State did not make that easy, and they're about to score a touchdown on us unless we're able to stop Branch, but he just ran down to the 2, or maybe he's going to keep going. We need a game-winning drive in less than a minute from Jeff Johnson if we're going to win this Big 12 championship, and time is not going to be on our side. I am taking this check down to get out of bounds, but I did not like that read there. Now I'm going to try to throw it up to our 6'4", 94 speed wide receiver, and that was another mistake on my part. We are going to hit the wrong button, so it is 4th and 7. There are 30 seconds left, and you know what? I have just got to force it over to Darby. I honestly thought the game was over there. Now I am going to roll out, and I don't see anything I like. And if I want to win a championship with Baylor, this is not how the playoffs can go, but I'm going to throw it up to our 6'8" tight end, and for whatever reason, they just didn't guard him. I'm not sure how much we deserve to win that game, but we fought very hard until the end, and Jeff Johnson probably just won a Heisman. We're about to find out if he did. There's the Big 12 championship trophy, but apparently he didn't, as the halfback from Army took it. He was still a Heisman finalist though, which is all that matters, and now we just need to have 3 All-Americans. There's our 2nd, with it being a sophomore defensive tackle I remember recruiting, and as I continue to scroll, you're gonna see that we had a returner as our 3rd. I remember mentioning Joseph Dodds at the beginning of the video, and although he didn't do much for us when it came to running the ball, he just became our 3rd All-American, which we desperately needed, and these stats weren't even that good. It does leave us with only 1 challenge remaining in this video though, and since the poll shaped out exactly how I predicted they would, we're gonna have to win 4 straight games to win a national championship. Our first opponent's a 97 overall, so even if Michigan's a 14 seed, I don't love this, and we're gonna have to face a pretty good quarterback. I know it's not gonna be easy to win the playoffs, but I didn't expect there to be so many solid teams like this around the country, because normally 5 years into a rebuild, everybody starts to fall off, and on 3rd and 12, our zone just didn't play it. We clearly gave them too much time, so I'm gonna send a blitz, and then they get it out quickly as well, and that would lead to the opening touchdown, so we are already struggling, and I did not mean to throw this one up to Stephen Holmes, but he grabs it. He just proved exactly why I wanted him on our team, and here on 3rd and 7, I am not going to stick with the running back well enough. So far, I've struggled time and time again to get the computer off the field on a 3rd down, but we do it here, and by the time there's 3 minutes left, not all that much has changed as it's still tied, but this time it's at 21 all. Getting them off the field on this 3rd and 2 would be incredible though, and we're going to get the interception with Parham, so that is massive. Even if he did get stuck and couldn't run for the touchdown, I'm going to send it up to Holmes, and this is why we're struggling. I've been playing poorly all game, making wrong read after wrong read, and you can't do that against a 97 overall team, so now we are in a lot of trouble, but we get an interception again. This time around, I'm also going to be a lot smarter and take things underneath, so we should be able to get down the field and kick the game-winning field goal, but they got in some pressure here. I'm going to have to escape with Jeff Johnson, and he does. This was a really weird matchup. It stayed very close and competitive throughout the entire thing, but nothing major really occurred until these final few minutes. I'm too tired to run, and that's going to make it 2nd and 19. There is not that much time left now, but Stephen Holmes comes away with the football. I also just realized that I don't think I checked season stats for this team, so we'll do that after this game, assuming that we're able to come out on top, and I don't know what field goal range is for us. I'm not sure if our kicker can even hit from here, so we're going to need at least a little bit more. We keep going back to our running back, and we should probably set him up in the middle of the field instead of on the side. I'm going to go ahead, put it up before they can ice us, and it's in. So that was a really weird first playoff game, and our defense was surprisingly the reason we won. As for Jeff Johnson's season stats, they looked really good, and he won a lot of awards because he also rushed for almost 1,000 yards, but we also got to talk about Nick Johnson, who had 2 really solid years for us. Then there's wide receiver Brian Lindsey, who did much better than Stephen Holmes during the Sims, and he already has more than 1,000 receiving yards and 10 more touchdowns than what he had last season. Our run of difficult opponents is probably going to continue though, because both of these colleges are really really good on paper, and USC won this one with ease. Their quarterback Mitch Wiggins had a really good day, so we're playing another double-digit seed, but I know they're good. We are slightly better than them though, and I just hope this isn't as close as the Michigan one. I feel like our offense is good enough to where we can pull away, but we also have to get stops from the beginning, and that's what we're on pace to do, as they're not going to get this 3rd and 16. I would have been shocked if they picked that up, and now we've moved it down the field relatively well, as we're going to go to the 20, and Jeff Johnson is going to set another record, this time breaking Nick Florence's, not RG3's. I couldn't tell you who that is. I've never heard of his name before, but evidently he was at Baylor when they were decent, and Nick Florence walked so Jeff Johnson could run. He is going to bomb this USC defense, and it's so nice to do this because we couldn't against Michigan. I tried to do it multiple times, and their corners always kept up with us, and we all know that USC is not known for the defense that they play, but we're going to give this up. Even after getting off to the type of start that we did, I don't feel that comfortable, especially if they're able to have this much time back there, but somehow our defense knocked that down, so they're going to be forced to just take their 3. How we handled this game is how I expected to handle our other ones, so it's nice to be dominating in one that I've hopped into, and there's no coming back from this. I mean, don't get me wrong, USC had a pretty good effort, but I just chewed as much clock as I possibly could, and I really don't want to play against either of these teams. They're both over 95 overalls, and Ohio State's undefeated, but Texas used all the recruits that they stole from us to come up short, and I don't think it's a good thing that they lost, because Brian Hayford looks incredible. Of the 4 teams left, 3 of us are undefeated, and I still don't know if I'm going to be able to win a championship. I gave myself 5 years and we made a good run, but there are some juggernauts of teams that are still remaining, so getting stops early would be our key to success, and I read the halfback screen like a book. We're going to get the interception. So much for that QB being solid, and John Robertson just made one of the best plays in this rebuild. We have been set up to score 7 points super early on, and here on 2nd and 7, our slant is wide open. Our routes would collide though, so now we have to pick up this 3rd down, and we are going to be short. So you'd assume I'd kick 3 here, but that is not happening. I like to play aggressively, and they left our flat open. I remember moving Raymond Wheeler during the offseason to be a tight end, and that decision is the reason that we just scored the first touchdown. Now, I will give the Buckeyes credit. They've had a pretty good drive against us, responding back with 7, but our offense has looked pretty solid so far, and they are going to get in some pressure, but we're going to throw it on the run over to Sims. That was such a dumb window to try and fit it in, but it did work out, so I can't complain about it. And after stopping Ohio State again, we're about to get our 3rd touchdown. I don't know what it was about that Michigan team that made things so difficult for us, but we are doing just fine, and I'm going to take a timeout to get the ball back again. After that moment, Ohio State would never get it close again, and I cannot believe how well we just performed, but it's because we have so many good receivers on this team. You know, I was saying that as we just dropped an easy touchdown, but our defense has also been pretty incredible, and I'm ready to play in the national championship game against whoever wins. It's going to be either Alabama or Georgia, and Ohio State has just not gone away, but they did commit illegal touching on that touchdown throw, so I can officially say that it is impossible for the Buckeyes to come back in this one, and we are just rubbing it in at this point. I have gotten Baylor to the national championship though, and this is going much better than our last 3 years, because we have double the wins we used to get, and we could still pick up one more against one of these teams. It looks like it is going to be Georgia, which I was not expecting, because they're only a 90 overall compared to Alabama's 99 overall, and they're also not undefeated. The Crimson Tide only have enough time for one more snap though, so I'm stoked, because I would much rather play against the Bulldogs, and they don't even get the Hail Mary out. We have a real chance to actually win it all with Baylor now, and I thought Alabama was going to be unbeatable, but I guess not. This 5-year rebuild challenge all comes down to this one game, and the pressure's on, but this is very winnable. The Bears have come pretty close before, but I think this is the time where they're actually going to make it happen, and that's because we have flown down the field so far to punch this in. Our defense has also already gotten one stop, and it's going to get another here, with our All-American defensive tackle making that play. So we got a really good opportunity to make this one ugly quick, and I'm going to have to step up in the pocket where I've tripped over my own feet, but it won't matter until we fumble it away and Chance is picking it up. What are the chances of that? Up until we made that costly mistake, we had full control of this one, but that's a great play. So they're going to have to take a field goal, and for a college kicker, this could be out of their range, but it's not for him. You can tell that time's really flown by in this one, as there's less than 2 minutes left in the first half already, but we're going to get past midfield with our best receiver. And with this defensive coverage out there, I kind of wanted to throw it up to our 6'8" tight end, but they had 2 guys drop back on him, so I'm just going to take off with Jeff Johnson instead and go down. You would think I would have learned from the first fumble, but I didn't, and it's about time we let our running back try to get a carry. Nick Johnson's really not all that though, so we put in the other Johnson, and he is a lot quicker going nowhere, but at least we got to see a little bit of explosiveness, and now I am going to roll out and throw it to our slant. Georgia didn't let me get the pass off, but it was a great plan if it would have worked for us, and now we're going into the half only up by 7. That lead would be maintained throughout the entire third quarter, but now we find ourselves in the fourth only up by 7, and this is the type of play that we needed. I also remembered to slide as well, and this drive could put Jeff Johnson's his name in the history books if he doesn't take the sack where he stumbles but still fights for the first. After all of that, he deserves a break, so we have gone over to Wildcat where we lose yards. And now it is 2nd and 13 where I'm going to hit it over to Stephen Holmes, who is wide open. I feel like that pretty much does it because we're already in field goal range, and with Nick Johnson taking it in, we're up by 2 possessions. The only thing that still concerns me a little bit is Georgia has all 3 of their timeouts remaining, but nothing has been as close as our matchup against Michigan was, and on 2nd and 3, they're going to go all the way down to the 1. Here on 1st and goal, it is a run, so they've made a mistake, and I've never seen the computer play so smart, saving their timeout, and we're going to get the interception as well. That was such a good play from Robertson. That will seal our national championship win, and I was able to complete all 6 of these challenges in just 5 years. That is thanks to quarterback Jeff Johnson, and there we are celebrating our national championship, which Baylor finally got. I don't think I've ever been able to go 17-0 in a rebuild, and we won so many games that our record actually glitched out. As for who's getting drafted, we had a lot of players declare early, alongside of course Jeff Johnson going in the 1st round, but I would have never guessed Reggie Quinn to do so as well since he never started for us. And that concludes the 5-year rebuild with Baylor, but if you want to see this same challenge with another school, make sure to let me know down below which college you want that to be.